want to get to like some favorite engineers. I want to get to some favorite labels or series,
Sure.
and certainly like some favorite artists and bands that that we're anticipating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is a very special edition of Life in Surround. This is the second annual Looking Forward or Forecast video. Ryan and I did a video for 2023, and it was among the more enjoyable videos for me. And then also the feedback was just overwhelmingly like enthusiastic. And I don't like to always be the one talking. So we're going to do some forecasting for 2024. We're going to cover confirmed titles at some points, and we'll do our best to call out when we're just speculating. Because, excitement over confirmed stuff is great, but speculation is fun. So say hi, Ryan, in case you haven't popped up on the screen yet.
Hello, everyone. Mike, thanks for having me back. I guess you can call me a repeat offender now on the Life and Surround series. So, yes, thanks for having me again. Looking forward to talking to you about everything related to Surround in 2024.
All right. Well, I'm happy to have you back. It is one of the funnest things that there is about this hobby is just kind of like, riding the rocket ship. Like, what are we going to get? So, I want to cover the fact that like the landscape for multi-channel music is broken up right now across physical media, which is mainly Blu-ray and Super Audio CD, I would say. Downloads that can be obtained from a variety of different sites, and then streaming, which can be done on a few different vendors. So I don't know like whether we'll concentrate mostly on physical media, probably, but definitely want to talk about like all three of those aspects of multi-channel. So I guess question number one for you, to get it out of the way, is: are you streaming spatial audio or Atmos right now?
I am doing that sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. So, probably about 2 years ago, I got myself a Apple TV, the little streaming device, and I've
Yep.
got it hooked up to my surround system. So, that allows me to stream pretty much any surround mix that's available on Apple Music. Now, most of that's Dolby Atmos mixes, but there's also some classic surround mixes, whether quad or 5.1, that they're doing, with the Dolby audio format. So probably not listening to so much of the older stuff, but definitely checking out some of the very important newer Atmos mixes that have been released or are being released that are only on streaming. If there's a disc and I like it, normally I get the disc and I never stream it, but there's so many things coming out now that are streaming only that are worth listening to. And so that's basically the only way to do it.
Can you give some notable examples from 2023 of streaming only Atmos that you're grateful, that you got a chance to experience?
Probably the one that I've been listening to the most recently, it came out in 2023, but I've only started catching up to it now, are the red and blue remixes from the Beatles. You know, um, Obviously, it's still kind of a sore point for me, like a lot of other people, that they decided to drop Blu-ray audio altogether, starting with the Revolver box set a few years
Right.
ago, moving forward. Um, but I've really been enjoying the red and blue remixes. I mean, there's a couple of tracks, particularly on the blue album, where the remixes are just fantastic, like just as good as anything, that Giles and Sam O'Kell have remixed for the Blu-ray audio releases. So, yep,
Sure.
that's kind of been the top thing that I've been listening to lately on the streaming front.
I would say most memorable for me in the recent past has been Joe Satriani's Surfing with the Alien. And then, jeez, it just slipped my mind. Oh, like all the new Pearl Jam records. So, we have the debut, we have Versus, several other later albums. Then we'll probably get Vitalogy pretty soon. So I really wish they would put them out on Blu-ray along with Megadeth and Metallica and all kinds of other albums that only exist on streaming. But I don't think only streaming will ever go away. They're never going to circle around and put them all out on Blu-ray. It's just Blu-ray is going to be the exception.
Yep, no, I think that's really how it's been, unfortunately. I mean, In some ways you could say, yeah, best, just to have them in any format than not to have them at all. But yeah, I've definitely on some of these, mixes been missing the tangible, format of them. And plus another thing too about the physical product is obviously if you buy it and you have it, you own it. As long as it's streaming only, there's a good chance that, it could disappear at one point and that would be it.
Right, you're just renting it. It's
Yep,
ephemeral.
that's right. Yep.
So true. Okay, so downloads. Are you downloading much?
Not doing a whole lot of downloads. So, yep, like I said, pretty much for me personally, it's mainly discs. And then if something I like's not available on a disc, and I can stream it, then I'm streaming it. But yeah, haven't really been, doing a lot of the downloads myself.
I know that it is popular with a lot of enthusiasts that we know, and I think it may tend to be geared toward the people who are building these huge personal servers, like network attached storage, like a huge NAS on their home system, and so then they can just access titles super quickly, and files are actually rather convenient. Like they don't have to go through the trouble of ripping.
Yeah, I'm doing, I guess to clarify, like, when it comes to my physical media, like I am doing, backups and rippings for files just to have it backed up just in
Sure.
case. In some case I'm playing that. But in terms of actually like, purchasing downloads from sites, I haven't really been doing a whole lot of that lately.
Yeah, I often will if like a lossless version of something that I really want has finally been put out. Like if like the physical release was lossy, like on DVD video, and then I have a chance to go get a lossless version, I'll often download that. Like Bruce Sword would be an example of that.
It's a good example. Yeah.
Right on. Okay, so let's get to uh some titles that we know are coming up and that we're excited about, or speculation. Let's get on with that, and then we'll just kind of call out whether we think it's going to be physical or streaming or download. And
Sure,
I want to get to like some favorite engineers. I want to get to some favorite labels or series,
sure.
and certainly like some favorite artists and bands that that we're anticipating.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what's coming up for you?
Well, I mean, I've got the, 2024 list pulled up. I mean, in the immediate future, there's some new titles, like brand new albums from people that I've got on pre-order that I'm pretty excited about. First and foremost of which is only about a week away, is the brand new Pineapple Thief record, remixed by Bruce Sword, who's part of the band. This is I think now the fourth, new record that they've come out, with in surround sound, Gavin Harrison playing drums, and heard some of the preview tracks. And I mean, it just sounds just as good as their other albums that they've released. So yeah, in the immediate future, that's definitely one of the ones that I'm most excited about.
Bruce, either with the Pineapple Thief or in his solo efforts, is just so consistently interesting and nails the execution, performance, mixing, mastering. So I'm always excited. Uh, Anything that he's really involved in, and then he actually is doing more and more mixing for other groups. I think it's primarily for Kscope,
Mm-hmm.
other groups that are within that Kscope family.
Yep.
Sometimes he only has stems to work with, but even then, like he just does a consistently great job. So
Yeah,
very excited about anything with his name on it.
absolutely.
I'm excited about Marillion coming up with some reservations. I've heard that the album for this year's deluxe packaging is going to be Strange Engine.
This Strange Engine, yep. It's the first album that they released after they, broke up, quote unquote, if you like, with their original record label, EMI, and they pretty much became an indie band at that point. And
One of
that
the
was,
first, one of the
yeah,
first
I was
to
like, that album came out, I think, like 25 years ago or more. So I mean, yeah, it's hoping that, obviously it seems like what they're trying to do, not only with that record, but with some of these other, independent releases of theirs, is continue these deluxe editions with, documentary on the Blu-ray, live shows, obviously new stereo and surround mixes. So yeah, as long as they keep putting them out, I'll keep buying them because they've become some of my favorite reissues in my collection for sure.
Yeah, there is some speculation over who will be given the mixing duties this time.
Mhm.
And, there are people who are hoping it's Steven Wilson, hoping for Stephen W. Taylor. I think it's probably going to be Michael Hunter, because I
Mhm.
think he's going to tend to, I think, mix on the projects that he had some historical involvement with,
Yes.
and is kind of the band's main engineer right now.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the main point is that he's been the main person that's worked with the band as a producer and engineer, I think, for probably at least the last like 20 years or so. So
Seems like
they
it. Yeah.
definitely like him and they definitely trust him. And yep, more than likely than not, he's going to be the person that they go to for these kind of releases.
So I know that there are some major detractors of his work in our, multi-channel community, but I tend to have a favorable view. Like, I know he tends to take a very conservative approach, but more often than not, it simply works for me.
Mhm.
And I hope he's just able to push the limits as far as he feels like it and as far as he can.
Yeah, I think his mixes, just like a lot of engineers, they've tended to get better as he's done more and more mixes. Like I seem to have a very favorable impression of the latest 5.1 mix he did for Season's End, compared to say, some of the very early stuff, like especially some of the stuff where the 5.1 mixes were coming out like as bonuses on these like concert Blu-rays and stuff like that. Some of those I think are maybe a little bit more hit or miss, but I think as the years have gone by, yes, those mixes have gotten better and better.
As it's gotten more focused. That makes sense. Oh, speaking of those surround albums that were just bonuses to a concert, Marillion, I think at my request, reissued Breaking Records, which
At
has,
my request too. Yes,
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yes. There were several of us, and well, they listened to us.
Yes, they did.
Um, and so I now am able to listen to just, my own physical owned copy of Radiation. So,
Same
and I
here.
find it decent. So yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll get something cool from Marillion this time around.
Agreed. And it should be mentioned as well too. I don't know if we'll get it this year, but I think a few weeks ago they did put on the banner of their Facebook page, like it's almost looked like under construction type stuff, but it said Marillion with 21 because I think their next record will be their 21st. So they're starting the process of the new record, although it takes a while for them to get stuff going. So I don't know if this is going to be something for this year. Maybe,
Maybe 2025.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yep.
Right on. And then related to Marillion, Fish
Mm-hmm.
should be continuing the reissuing of his back catalog.
Yes, absolutely. I'm trying to pull up real quick what the records are. The ones that he's talked about recently are Vigil in a Wilderness of Mirrors and Internal Exile. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that these are actually the first two solo records that he released. I know for sure that Vigil was the very first one, but I think Internal Exile might be the second one as well too. Yeah, I mean his releases have been great as well too. He's poured a lot of content into some of his recent releases as well too. So yep, I will probably be picking those up for sure too.
I've been happy with the value from the Fish releases. They do tend to be pricey, but like you said, he does pack the features in there, and they tend to be features that I appreciate at least once. Some live content, some documentary type of stuff, and some promotional type of stuff. Uh, that will probably be an Andy Bradfield and Avril McIntosh Atmos mix.
Mhm.
At the the most robust, and then maybe 5.1 and maybe stereo remixes. Hard to know, but I'm pretty sure we'll get a Bradfield McIntosh Atmos mix. And
Yeah.
good news there is they really have impressed me with their last few efforts, like top tier
Yes.
mixes that I just really thoroughly enjoy.
Same here. Yeah, like a slightly I like the record, but like a slightly weaker Marillion album for me, like Fugazi, just exploded
It got
when I
really
heard
elevated.
5.1. Yes, absolutely. Great stuff for sure.
Yes, yes, indeed. All right, so I want to cover some of the series that we're most excited about, rather than just like one-off titles exclusively. So labels and series that have been really exciting to me and have really just kept my passion for this hobby engaged through 2023 were Sony Japan with that 7-inch packaging SACD series, SDE with the SDE surround series. Cherry Red seems to be like where most of like Stephen W. Taylor's mixes come out of, and a bit of a variety to the titles that they cover. Mostly, I would say like 70s prog oriented, maybe.
Mhm. Yep.
Rhino with Rhino Quadio. Holy smokes! Like that is an exciting series. Dutton Vocalion, I think, has slowed down significantly,
Mhm.
but is likely to drop at least a tidbit or two on us. And Dutton Vocalion, I love how Mike Dutton is the like out of print super price buster. OJ's Ship Ahoy, was in my search list forever, and I never saw a copy of it available for like less than stupid money, like 100 plus or whatever. And then he drops it with 3 quadraphonic records for like 20 pounds.
Mhm.
So Dutton Vocalion, maybe.
Mhm.
Pure Audio, they brought us some interesting titles last year, like The Journey of Yotu from Franco Musita. So I'm eager to see like, what they have up their sleeve. 2L, Morten Lindberg. Love him and his label. It's always interesting to say the least, like whatever genre they choose to go with. That's usually like recorded on site in a cathedral, and it's like the pieces chosen and the performers and the cathedral, and the array is set up just special. And so like those albums just like are like they you can't help but come out perfect, just with all that detail, and Morton, his mixing and his mastering experience. So definitely looking forward to 2L. And then K-Scope tends to really scratch a lot of the itch for like quadraphonic quad, and just a lot of the people that I know that love multi-channel as much as we do.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going through, all the different sort of series and labels that you were talking about. I mean, I think one of the most pleasant, there's been many pleasant things that happened this past year in 2023, but I just absolutely loved the variety and scope of titles that Paul Sinclair was putting out with the Super Deluxe Edition series. I mean, I think I ended up ordering all but maybe two of the titles that came out last year. I definitely didn't get the Bob Dylan just because it's just not my thing, especially later Bob Dylan era. But I mean, so many incredible, great titles that came out last year through that series. Probably my favorite of all time from that series, especially last year, would have to be The Hurting from
Oh
Tears for
man, that
Fears.
was
That was
killer.
like a big check mark, bucket list title. And I'm really, really hoping, because many people know that Paul Sinclair has a really, really great relationship with Tears for Fears, not only in terms of the two titles that he's put out from the SD series, which would be The Hurting and The Tipping Point, but before that, he was doing the liner notes and helping to program the bonus discs for those Tears for Fears box sets. So he has a very, very close, tight connection with him. There's only a few more Tears for Fears titles that we don't have in surround sound. I really still hope we get Elemental at some point. The 30th anniversary passed last year, but we know how delays can happen. So love to get that title. A lot of people would also really love Everybody Loves a Happy Ending, which I think came out 20 years ago this year. It was the first time that Roland Orzabal and Kurt Smith had written and recorded together since The Seeds of Love, and there's some fantastic songs on that album.
Now, has Seeds of Love been mixed into Atmos? I think I saw that in the 2024 forecast on Quadraphonic Quad. Stephen
Yeah.
Wilson.
Yeah. From what I know, Steven Wilson did mention that he has gone back and done an Atmos mix of Seeds of Love, because at the time that the Seeds of Love 5.1 mix was finished and then finally released, he still wasn't quite there yet in terms of being able to do Atmos mixing himself. I'm definitely down for getting a reissue of Seeds of Love and Atmos, but my priority would definitely be the titles that don't exist in surround sound at all,
Yeah,
like Until and
totally.
Everybody Loves a Happy Ending.
Okay, other than Tears for Fears, do you have any speculations for the surround series, the SDE surround series?
Not really, just because I mean the titles just tend to be just so diverse and really kind of random. I mean, sometimes like it goes along with anniversaries or new releases, but there were so many titles that I just was not expecting that ended
Yeah.
up happening. Now, I would love more from ABC because I loved Steven Wilson's Lexicon of Love remix. That was one of the best releases from the series. Same thing with his remix of the first Suede record.
Oh, Suede.
More from
Oh my gosh,
Suede
I would
would be
love more
great.
Suede.
Yep. I would even love you know, Mike Oldfield releases because I loved the Tubular Bells. I think a lot of people will remember that some of Mike's classic records that were remixed and released in surround sound about 15 years ago, they only came out on DVD with Dolby Digital Audio.
Yes,
So it would be a perfect opportunity to not only get some of those records remixed in Atmos, but you would finally get lossless audio as well.
totally agreed. Totally agreed. Okay, Rhino Quadio, like how much are you able to even speculate? Like I could rifle through my CD4 collection and kind of, build some anticipation, I suppose.
Yeah, it's still a bit hard to speculate for that series, but one thing that kind of helps narrow that series down that's a lot trickier with the SDE series is the fact that for the most part, Rhino are pulling from the Warner, Elektra, Asylum, Atlantic, Reprise. They're pulling from labels like those, that they, own the masters too. So I think there's actually a link still on the Quadraphonic Quad website that basically lists all the quad releases from those labels. So you can see the Atlantic releases, the Warner, the Elektra, Asylum, Reprise. So that's always a good starting point to see, which titles they could release. Now, some have changed ownership, like some that were released on those labels back in the day, Rhino don't have the rights to anymore. But there's also some other titles that have come in that they do have the rights for. One of the best examples in the first batch was the Jefferson Starship title. And then I think also in this latest batch that just came out, the War title, I think, was not originally part of the WEA record labels. So there's some that come, there's some that go, but yep, those old classic WEA quad titles are basically, what they're pulling from for this series.
If they stick to a roughly quarterly release pattern, then we could anticipate 16 albums this year, and then maybe 16 next year and 16 the following year. If if they do that, of the titles that are likely, I think they could maybe burn through them in a few years. But we'll see if they hold to that pattern. We'll see if that really is the finite limit of the albums that they can release. Maybe it's higher. Maybe there will be some surprises. Who knows?
Yeah.
Some stuff that has like never been actually released before would be great, but I know that those are like the least likely.
Yeah.
But each one that is just brought into optical, like on Blu-ray, out of that age of Q8 tapes and CD4 records, just makes it more accessible for me. It makes it more convenient, and then like that pristine Blu-ray sound. Oh my gosh, I
Yes.
love I love the Quadio series.
If anybody wants a great example of, how much effort they're putting into making sure that it's, from the original master tapes, remastered for optical disc at the best possible quality. I think many people know there was I think about 15 years ago in 2009, there was a very, very poorly received small deluxe edition of Paranoid by Black Sabbath that came out where the quad mix was pulled, I think either from like a reel or a vinyl or a tape or something like that, something that was commercially released, and it just sounded terrible.
Yeah.
And then if you put on this new Quadio Blu-ray, it's almost like for the old reissue that somebody literally threw like the biggest blanket over your speakers.
Yep.
So and it's almost like now, like you're actually listening to it like in a control room. Like that's how big of a difference it was between those two releases for me.
All right. So anniversary possibilities. Zappa, Rush, Pink Floyd, uh,
Mhm.
King Crimson, maybe.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see.
In the
So,
Wake of Poseidon.
yeah. Well. The first thing you mentioned was Zappa. Last year we got a lovely 50th anniversary box set for Overnight Sensation. This year, I think, is the 50th anniversary for the follow-up record, Apostrophe.
Apostrophe.
I'm pretty sure both of those records were pretty much recorded simultaneously, even though they were
I
released
believe
by
so.
hard.
Yep.
But for the most part, I mean, Zappa has such a wide-ranging discography, and the real big Zappa fans, which I wouldn't consider myself to be one of them. I like, what I've heard, but I haven't heard everything of his. But if you talk to a lot of Zappa fans, the casual ones to the more obsessive, pretty much everyone will say that he was at the top of his game with Overnight Sensation and Apostrophe. And I loved how good the Overnight Sensation remix sounded, and it was great to get the old quad mix. I'm really hoping that we get both the new remix and the old quad mix for Apostrophe as well.
Yeah, if Apostrophe resembles the Overnight Sensation set whatsoever, I'll just be absolutely thrilled. Overnight
Yeah,
Sensation
absolutely.
was one of my top experiences in multi-channel for the whole year.
Yep. Now, I think another one that you mentioned was Rush, which we're both really, really big fans of. This is, if I'm not mistaken, the 40th anniversary this year of Grace Under Pressure,
Yep,
an album that so far has never been released in surround sound.
correct.
So, yep, if it comes out in surround sound as part of one of these big box sets, yeah,
That would
for
just be like complete mind blown. Like, oh
yes.
my God.
For some of the other box sets that have come out recently, like Moving Pictures and Signals, I bought them, but I've kind of waited till they've dropped a little bit in price.
Sure.
I don't know if I could hold out for Grace Under Pressure, just because not only do I love that record, but again, never been released in surround sound before. So yes, definitely hoping for a 5.1 and Atmos mix of that one this year.
I suspect that we'll get something more like just t-shirts and baseball caps and stuff like that issued on Rush backstage. And maybe they might remaster the Grace Under Pressure tour video to Blu-ray. And if they did that, I would be all over that just to get the soundtrack lossless
Yeah.
in 5.1 instead of, the DVD that came out a while ago is DTS. So I'm keeping my hopes down because Grace Under Pressure is one of my top Rush records and one of the records I listen to the most, like, of anyone. So
Yeah.
it's a top record for me, and I just don't want to like set myself up for heartache.
Mhm.
So that would be great. Maybe some sort of deluxe will come out, but they might not even like put out a physical deluxe because I think they're pretty adamant about looking at sales. They keep hitting 2112 moving pictures signals a lot. If
Mhm.
anything, maybe looking forward into the 90s and the 2000s, like maybe Counterparts or Roll the Bones or Snakes and Arrows or an album like that could maybe get greenlit just as potentially as something like Grace Under Pressure.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I think, Grace Under Pressure has going forward is the fact that it's still part of, the same original record label, as these other albums.
Mercury, yeah.
Dude, yep. So I think that's probably, one of the strongest hopeful indicators of, maybe hopefully them continuing that series this year and into the future.
I hope they'll try something. And then the Tragically Hip, also from Canada, have also been hitting some anniversaries and have been putting out, Atmos, Blu-ray Atmos content
Yep.
of their albums. So I think the last one was Fully Completely. Oh, Phantom Power.
Phantom Power, that's right. Yep, they reissued Phantom Power. I'll be honest, I haven't listened to a ton of Tragically Hip. I listened to Road Apples
Nice.
streaming on Atmos, when it originally
Yeah.
came out in 2021, but I haven't checked out any of the other ones yet. But I'm open to it because I liked what I heard from Road Apples.
Yeah. I love the hip. So whatever's coming, I'm looking forward to that. So some favorite engineers of mine, I constantly talk about Stephen Wilson, Stephen W. Taylor, Richard Chickey, Bob Clearmountain, Ronald Prent, Bruce Sword, and Bradfield and McIntosh. Like those are kind of my biggies. Like, do you have any thing exciting for you? Looking forward to any of their work this year or other engineers that I didn't mention?
Well, one Stephen Wilson remix that's going to be great that's coming up in 2 weeks is The Missing Piece from Gentle Giant. If people are familiar with these Gentle Giant remixes, not only is the music weird, quirky, and fun, it's made for surround sound. Stephen Wilson does a great job on these 5.1
Totally.
remixes. And then the cherry on top of this beautifully baked cake is, of course, the fact that these Blu-rays have these incredible animations, different animations that correspond to each song. So you're not only listening to the record, but you're engaging with something that's visually cool as well, too.
So far, I think The Power and the Glory is the best animation
Mhm.
of their Blu-ray releases, and I think Freehand is Steven Wilson's top mix.
Yes.
Freehand just freaking
Yeah,
blows my mind.
I think I'd have to agree with that. I mean, Steven's always been pretty good with surround mixes, but I feel like just over the years in general, but then with each particular artist, each surround mix has gotten better and better. So yeah, I would say the last couple Freehand and Interview have probably been my favorite ones lately to listen to in surround from Gentle Giant.
Stephen W. Taylor.
Stephen W. Taylor. So I really, really love the fantastic Camel box set that came out last year.
I'm still
The thing with-
digesting the stereo content, and I am hoping any time now to be able to get to his 5 multi-channel mixes in that set of
Yep.
super classic Camel.
I think that there is at least one Stephen W. Taylor remix that I think has been confirmed for release in 2024. It's another Hawkwind mix. It's an album called In Search of Space. I think somebody found a little blurb about that, like in a magazine, saying that a remixed expanded edition of that was coming. I still haven't had a chance to listen to the Space Ritual mix yet, although I've got it. So I'm gonna have to check it out at some point. But
Yeah, do yourself a favor when you want to go on like a 75-minute trip. Just uninterrupted, focused listening shall be rewarding. I'm sure
yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot of fun.
absolutely. You know, his remixes have been great. So anything that he's remixed or mixed, I'll definitely check out. Should mention as well too, now that I thought about it just now, was it wasn't on my original looking forward to 2024 thread because I kind of found out about it a few days later, but Howard Jones made some mention about some reissues of his stuff that's coming out, where Steven Taylor did some 5.1 mixes and Bob Clearmountain did some Atmos mixes.
Oh
I
my
think
God.
those will be coming out via the Cherry Red label. Not super familiar with his music. I think I know a couple of songs, but I've liked what I've heard, so I'll definitely check it out.
He's just one of the greatest male pop artists of this millennium. So
Very
it's
good.
good stuff. I'm super excited about that
Yep.
in all regards that you mentioned. Sony Japan. We're getting Piano Man from Billy Joel. I bought it on pre-order, and I went ahead and picked up a Santana SACD that I didn't have yet. I try to combine shipping from Sony Japan just to kill the pain a little bit.
Mhm.
Anything else you think they might have up their sleeve for this year? Should we be looking forward to more Santana, perhaps?
Yeah, I think more Santana is definitely, the most likely thing. I mean, since, 2020, they've been doing these 50th anniversary SACD reissues of their classic albums that have had quadraphonic mixes. And I think for most of these, this is the first time that these quadraphonic mixes have been reissued since the 70s.
Yes.
Uh, I've personally, I've kind of fallen off the SACD wagon a little bit, sometimes just because of the expense and also some of the titles. And, they're not as versatile as a format as Blu-ray, but it's great still that these labels have been putting the time into reissuing and remastering these classic quad mixes to have them again.
I'm just such a classic quad junkie. I just can't help it. All right, so we only have a few minutes left, about a minute and a half. And so I just want to kind of recap. We've covered streaming, downloads a little bit, physical media. We've talked about anniversary releases, some of our favorite engineers, some favorite labels or series that are going on. Any last minute thing you want to just talk about what you're excited about for 2024, and then we'll say goodbye.
Well, between your shirt and your poster, it's like I just want to, shout at the top of my lungs, not literally to Pink Floyd, but give us the wall
Just the
in
universe, right?
sound this
Please,
year.
please
Yes.
universe.
Yes.
Please.
They've done all the Dark Side of the Moon stuff. They've done the early years. They've done the later years, Animals, all of that stuff. It's finally time for the wall in surround sound. And if we get that this year, it could probably be my favorite release of the year without even listening to it.
Hard to argue with that. I think maybe only multi-channel Grace Under Pressure would take that title for me.
Yep,
All right,
absolutely.
all right, my friend. It's been excellent to do this again. And for everyone watching, thank you for doing so. And until next time, everyone try to live life in surround.